here, not this. Palatine bone here. This entire thing, if she's to put a sticker here and she's putting landmark, this is going to be your horizontal plates of the palatine bone. If she puts a sticker there and she's asking for bone, that will just be palatine bone. Then we have greater and lesser foramina. This big guy here, that little foramen, that's going to be your greater foramen. Right below, lesser foramen. And that's it for the palatine bone. Then we go to maxilla. We have an orbital surface of the maxillary bone. Remember to follow your sutures, right? Maxillary orbital surface. Then we have a frontal process. Think of it, oh my gosh. Think of your other processes, right? So we have these process. So now we're asking for the frontal process, which is coming from the frontal bone to the maxilla. So wherever you see that they're connecting by this suture, below this suture, frontal process of the maxillary bone. Oh. Then we have infraorbital foramen. Then we have alveolar process. This one is the alveolar process of the maxilla. This is of the mandible. Then we have palatine process. Palatine process, we're coming from the palatine bone to the maxilla. This is part of the maxillary bone. So here's a palatine process of the maxillary bone. Then we have incisive canal. That one is right here, right behind the front two teeth. Then we have maxillary sinus that you would have to see when it's like cut. Then we have infraorbital fissure. That is part of the maxillary bone. That guy, you can also see it in the inferior view. Okay. Then inferior nasal concha. These guys right here. Then we have the temporal process of the zygomatic bone. So this guy right here. Temporal, coming from the temporal bone, temporal process of the zygomatic bone. Okay. Then we have the mandible. That's this guy. The body. Remember, you're thinking.
Thinking.
Then we have coronoid process, like corona, right? The little spine. Coronoid process.
Okay.
Mandibular condyle, this one right here. This one articulates with your mandibular fossa of the temporal bone. We have the mandibular notch. We have alveolar process of the mandible, angle of the mandible, ramus, mental foramen here, mandibular foramen on the posterior side. Mandibular posterior, mental anterior. And then we have the mental protuberance. I think that's it.